Wow. We gotta cut your hair.
Are we live? I'm here. Are you here? Welcome everybody to this week's 3 Believe Wellness program. We have some good stuff. One of the most popular topics that I talk about, we're going to go over today. Actually, this is a 2-part series, and because we have so much to go over, and it's actually better that you experience this spoon-fed. So we're going to go with this over 2 different programs, and we'll get started in today's episode of Breaking Plateaus. So let's get started here. Glad everyone's here, and let me just click on make sure everything is working properly. Hopefully everyone's getting ready for Halloween, and it is the beginning of the season, the beginning of what we commonly call the weight gain season, right? And I want you to be careful. I want you to be careful during the season. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks. But when we got started, sometimes you don't know when the mic is on. And when we got started, yes, Robert, I do need to cut my hair. So I had mentioned we had a little talk over when we started, and that slipped out. So yes, I need to cut my hair. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Happy salutations. And let's get started in the 3 Believe Wellness program. Just a little bit of background of who I am. I'm a food scientist. I specialize in chronic disease and the treatment of metabolic syndrome. I started this 11 years ago. I formulate special programs and meals for doctors to treat their patients, diabetics, those that suffer with obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol, stomach disorders. These doctors, when I started, wanted an alternative treatment to just medication and surgery. And so that's where we started. We started with doctors because, well, that's where sick people go. And according to the CDC, 79% of Americans are overweight, 37% have high cholesterol, a staggering 46% have high blood pressure, 15% are diabetic, and by other reports, 32% of the population. Now, this includes everybody. Those that are not visually overweight, this study of the 32% of those that don't look overweight have a fatty liver. Those that are overweight, 75 to 80% of those that are overweight have a fatty liver. It's not the things that you want to shoot for. It's not something you want to ask Santa to provide for you in your Christmas stocking. It's just not good. So the average American's health, sadly, our friends, our neighbors, our associates, even our enemies will suffer from these chronic diseases. So if a person is overweight, they have a chronic disease. If they suffer from type 2 diabetes, they have a chronic disease. All of them are categorized as a chronic disease, and it's something we want to avoid. Now, our message is really simple. Even though we go over a ton of different topics, we talk about your eating ratio, your FPC, balancing out your fat, your protein, and carbohydrates. It's not equal. What you see on the screen there is what the average American eats as far as their caloric intake. So 34% of their calories are coming from fats, 51% are coming from carbohydrates, and that is the main crux of the problem. It's not that carbs are evil. It's just that if you eat that ratio for a prolonged period of time, you're going to get those chronic diseases. Over 20,000 clinical studies have established this. It's not an argument anymore, or at least it shouldn't be. And our message is we want to teach you that since we all have to eat food to survive, right? I want you to ask, is this, rather than asking, is this a healthy food or this an unhealthy food? I want you to ask, is this food accomplishing my goal, or is it getting me further away from my goal? Is it killing me, or is it healing me? And it's just as simple as just the FBC is just balancing changing the numbers around. The average American eats 51% of their calories from carbohydrates. Well, just drop it. Don't eliminate them. That's okay if you have them. Just reduce the number down. And the studies say in the range of 12 to 22%. If you're in a phase 4, that's basically just meaning maintenance. But if you want to get faster results, then you drop it lower than that. And that's where you go into our phase 1 program. So knowing this balance, this FPC, is more important than exercise. As important as exercise is, it's more important than taking supplements. I take them every single day. And yet FPC, if you change your FPC, you will literally change your health. You'll change the future. You'll rewrite it. You'll be able to predict more accurately what's happening. Over 11 years ago, touching closer to 12 years ago, I was tipping the scales at 280 pounds. So that wasn't the worst of my problems. I had also 10 other chronic diseases like high blood pressure. I was pre-diabetic. I had stomach disorders. I had elevated cholesterol. I had aches and pains. That was terrible. But I followed the same program that I'm telling you, the FPC balancing ratio. And in 12 weeks, without any exercise, as though I do exercise, I needed to prove to myself and establish the standard that exercise is not absolutely required to lose chronic disease. It's just a wonderful add-on. But I did it without exercise, and in 12 weeks, I didn't have any chronic diseases. Did it without medication. So today's program I want to talk about is a big fear is hitting a plateau. And so I want to talk about, have you or do you think you've hit a plateau point? Are you a resident there? Have you visited there? Are you staying there longer than you'd like to? So let's get into it. I know it can be exacerbating, it can be frustrating, but the reality is that all fat loss programs suffer from plateaus. The exact reason, to be honest with you, are unknown. Our bodies are complex. They're a little confusing sometimes. The fact is, however, that the body eventually adapts to any diet, and fat loss can slow or even stop completely. We also need to understand that when the human body goes through any physiological change, good or bad, your body will adapt to that change. The same thing happens with power lifters or any athlete. If you start lifting weights, for example, for strength, you'll get into the gym, you'll notice that your increases are fantastic within a short period of time. You really improve quickly, but then they start to slow down. That's because your body is reaching a plateau. It's reaching a point of homeostasis. And that's normal. It's expected. And actually, it's a good thing because that means that you're progressing. It means that you're improving. The growth of muscle will also reach a plateau. So it's not only with cardiovascular, it's not only with just life in general, but the muscles will reach a plateau. That's the whole reason that an athlete has to keep changing their workouts, changing them up, different types of workouts, to continue to get stronger, to break through the plateau and to get faster. Chances are that you've experienced a body adapting over time to change. A very common one is medication. How about when you take medication? Have you noticed that over time, that medication doesn't work like it did when you first started it, right? You need more of it. Caffeine is the world's most popular drug and the most legalized drug. Have you ever drank coffee for a period of time? You start drinking coffee and you'll notice that buzz. Or do you even remember that buzz that you got when you first started drinking it? But then it goes away. It now needs more. Either you need more a stronger coffee with more caffeine in it, or you need more of it, more cups of coffee to wake up in the morning. The same can happen with a can of pop, right? That one can of pop, and not only the caffeine, but also the sugar that you get from that can of pop will normalize. Your body will get used to it. So then you got to turn to 2 cans of pop to get the same effect that you had before. And then you go from there, you go to these other power punch, like the 5-Hour Energy or Rock Stars of the world. Now, even though they have no calories, I want you to pay attention that they don't actually provide you with energy. Energy actually can only come from one of 3 sources, right? Which are proteins, carbs, and fats. Now, I'm going to throw in there the 4th macronutrient that you've heard me talk about, which are ketones. Ketones, we're going to put that into the fat category over there on the far right, because when we burn the fat is when ketones are created. So that's our 4th macronutrient. But all of these events are all caused by our body adapting to the physiological change that you've changed up, that you've put on it. Your body is searching for a balance. It wants to reach a point that it's not under stress anymore. So let's talk about how to break through these plateaus. We know they're going to happen. I want you to expect them. Don't be depressed about them, because they're a positive things. I mean, we're climbing the mountain of success, right? And then we reach a plateau, and then we just need to climb the rest of the mountain, and we're going to hit another plateau. So the first thing that we need to confirm before we start a plateau breaking program is asking the question, have you really hit a plateau? Are you trapped on that spot, or are you just maybe a little impatient? Sometimes we think we've hit a plateau when we haven't. Maybe we are over anxious. Our expectations are a little higher than they should be. And we want things to change faster. We want to lose weight faster. We want to get stronger faster than your body can actually keep up with you. As amazing as it is, our imagination can be a little bit, aggressive. So before you start making changes to get off a plateau, you have to confirm that you're on one first. Okay? First, we need to qualify the difference between a fat loss plateau and a weight loss plateau. They are not the same thing. They're as different as apples and oranges. The weight could stay the same, your weight could stay the same, but you could be gaining or losing in different areas. For example, you could be gaining weight through an increase of hydration. So let's not forget that hydration in your body has weight. Water weighs something. In fact, most Americans are dehydrated and have too little body water. You could say that as far as water is concerned, people need to weigh more. They need to increase their hydration weight. In fact, we've designed our program so that it forces your body through the formula that we give you to actually increase your hydration rate. Now, it's important that you follow the program. I can't make you drink water, but for example, I've given you in your formula of the CMR extra trace minerals that will retain the water that you're drinking. It'll drive more of that moisture, that hydration into your tissue and into your cells. That's the goal. I don't want it just sitting in your belly and then going right to your bladder and your kidneys, right? I want it to go into the cell. That's where we're dehydrated. And so I formulated the CMR that does that very thing. It drives more of that hydration into your cells. However, what I can't do is I can't make you drink the water. So the minerals I'm giving you are kind of useless as far as hydration is concerned if you're not then adding the water to it, right? So there's a study that shows that, a recent one, that as much as 75% of people are chronically dehydrated. And that's not a good thing, right? We think that we're drinking a lot during the day, but if you actually do a survey, you'll find that most people, or at least a lot of people, don't like water because we have an expectation of we want to drink our coffee, we want to drink our sodas, we want to drink these sweet drinks, or coffee in a case, bitter if you don't sweeten it. And so we have to have a sensation of flavor, it would seem. Well, water doesn't have a lot of flavor. And that's just something you need to grow past that. I'm asking you just to put it aside and go, you need water to survive. Now, we'll go over more details on water in our part 2, but that's one way. So is it possible that you're looking at the scale, you're discouraged because you haven't lost the weight that you think you have, you've been following the program, but your body's following my design of the formula in increasing the hydration? Now, you can tell that by the scale that I provided you, and you can check your hydration, and I want that number to go up. That's a great thing. But when your weight goes up in hydration, your body weight's going to go up. But that doesn't mean that you have more fat, right? There's just like apples and oranges of weight and fat are different. Water or hydration and fat are not the same thing. Another area or another way that you may be gaining weight that may seem to be discouraging is through the increase of muscle mass. Most people lose 3 to 5% of their muscle per decade after the age of 30 years old. That's right. So once you hit 30, on average, muscle mass starts dropping 3 to 5%. So if you're 60 years old, you could have lost as much as 10 pounds of muscle. And that's really a big deal. That's not a good thing. Once you hit 75, the rate of muscle loss increases even more, even at a greater rate of 3 to 5%. Now, it's not as much as the fact that you're getting older. It's not the age factor, but that people that are 75 years old are not, they're just not doing as much as they used to do. They don't exercise. I don't want you to do that. A lot of people do it because they don't think that they should be doing those things, right? There's a certain, maybe it's even a history or an expectation that people that are older, where do you see the old Rockwell pictures? You see Norman Rockwell painting pictures of grandma with a shawl around her shoulder outside next to the log cabin, chopping down trees and feeding the cows and plowing the fields. No, they see him rocking in a chair, sipping some tea, right? Knitting a sweater, and grandpa's reading a book, but he's actually not reading it because he's fallen asleep. That's the nostalgic pictures that we see of our elderly. But I want you to get past that and consider something else. Now, here's a picture of Sylvester Stallone. I picked Sylvester because most people know this actor. He's a famous actor. He's been around for, 40 years, if not longer. And that picture there is when he was 20 years old, and a picture today when he's 72 years old. Okay? 72 years old. Now, I'm not saying you have to go and get a bunch of tattoos, or if you start building some muscle, tattoos don't just pop out of your skin. They don't just automatically appear. Okay, I'm not advocating about getting tattoos, and I'm not saying that you can't get them. If you want a tattoo, for heaven's sakes, go get one. I don't do tattoos, but no big deal. I'm showing you this picture so to show you how amazing the body is and the great things it can do. This is the same person. Here's young and vibrant and able to do anything. And here he is at 72 years old, right? Don't believe that your body cannot do great things even at a older age, okay? Now, Sylvester Stallone looks this age. He looks like this because he's active. He doesn't rest. He's not sitting there reading a book, though I read books, but he's active. He's building his muscles. You don't have to have bulging muscles to be healthy, but I want you just to be impressed with the fact and erase the notion that you're just too old and your body can't do it, okay? Now, there's a question here is, how do we determine the percentage of water reflected in our weight? That's a great question. they're really the only way to measure it so that you have an accuracy, because there's so many things that affect a person's hydration. Okay. One is the time of day. If you're a woman, it can be a menstrual cycle. Even if they're in menopause, the body still goes through that water retentive time. If you have more inflammation, you're going to have more hydration. You're going to have typically less hydration in the morning when you first wake up than you are later in the day, because you've been fasting all night long and breathing out water rather than taking in water. You don't get up in the middle of the night generally and drink a lot of water, right? So it's going to fluctuate. So you want to take an average. It's best for you to, I like measuring my hydration at 2 times of the day if I'm paying attention to my water. So I'll measure it at about 7 o'clock in the evening, and then I'll do it first thing in the morning before I drink anything. After I've gone to the restroom, I'll measure it, because that's going to tell me at my lowest point of hydration. And I use the scale, the body in biomarker scale that we provide, because it gives me a basis of knowing what my body fat is, my muscle mass, and my hydration. It tells me a measurement. Now I can look at it and go, oh, I forgot all about it. Yesterday I was hopping around. I was in some places I generally don't find myself, and I didn't take my water jug. You see me when I start my programs a lot, I carry that blue jug. That is just a method I like to have. It's 74 ounces, has a handle on it. For me, it's convenient because I don't have to carry several water bottles throughout the day, and I don't have to count them. I don't have to memorize. I just know I drink that thing twice. I fill it up once. In the middle of the day, I drink 2 of those. I'm plenty hydrated. I'll have all the water that I need. Sometimes if I'm doing a heavy workout, I'll drink a little bit more, but I'm okay. The percentage that you're shooting for is, I feel best. I notice that I feel best at about 60 to 63% of hydration. Now, I want you need to be between 48 and 50%. So your goal should be hit that 48, 50 percentile of, again, the scale that I referenced. That'll tell you the percentages, and you want to increase that. I'll often take extra hydrate pills that we have to help drive more of that hydration into my cells. If I notice that I am just urinating a lot of the water out that I'm drinking, that's telling me that my body is saying, I need more trace minerals. I need more of the sodium to hold on to that water. And so I use those 2 mechanisms. One, the scale to measure my percentage. I personally like being at 60 to 63%, but physiologically speaking, the studies say that you need between 48 and 50 at least to give your body the stuff that it needs. So hopefully that answers the question of the measurement tool that you need to shoot for. Now, the National Strength and Conditioning Association says that if you lose muscle, you lose metabolism. So when you talk about metabolism, how do you measure it? Well, it's really a measure of your muscle, the amount of muscle that you have, and its level of capacity. Now, according to the National Strength and Conditioning Association, in a 24-hour period, 10 pounds of muscle burns 60 calories just staying alive. Now, that doesn't include exercising or moving around, all right? That's just sitting on the couch, doing nothing for 24 hours, 10 pounds of muscle burns 60 calories just to keep those muscle cells alive. Compare that to fat of 10 pounds. It only burns 20 calories to stay alive, right? So it doesn't require as much energy. Now, the sad news is for most people that as they're aging, they are getting heavier in total body weight, but their muscle mass is getting lower. So they're just exchanging their muscle for fat. Now, don't be confused. I'm not saying that muscle turns into fat if you don't exercise. That's like oil and water. They're 2 completely separate substrates, 2 different materials. That's impossible for your muscle to turn into fat. And And conversely, your fat turn into muscle. It can be confusing if you're looking only at your total body weight and you see that you weigh the same as you did, say, 2 or 3 years ago, but you're weaker, you feel weaker. Well, that just means simply that you've just lost a little muscle and you've gained a little fat. That's why you're the same weight. That's not a perfect scenario. So let's not do that. That's the worst of both worlds. Body weight going up and fat going up and muscle going down. And if that happens, you can count on your bone density and your bone strength going down as well, because it's the amount of muscle mass and the amount of resistance training, like this woman's here doing, lifting a little bit of weight. When she's doing that, not only is it lifting and strengthening her muscles, but it is also simultaneously strengthening her bones. If you want to keep high bone density, if you want to reduce and eliminate the chances of having a broken hip, is very common with elderly people falling down. Your bones were designed to be able to take a fall like that, okay, without breaking. Don't take more extra calcium. Strengthen the bone by strengthening the muscle. That's how you strengthen. Your bones will keep up with however strong your muscle is. Now that doesn't count, of course, if you fall off a 2-story building. It's probably more than what your bones were ever designed to handle, and that's why you get broken bones. All right. So now another weight-related question to ask yourself is, are you having your daily bowel movement? So when you're checking your weight and you're going, am I at a plateau? Remember, this whole discussion right now is talking about, we're confirming that you really are on a plateau and your body's not fooling you. So 1 was hydration, 2 is muscle loss and bone loss. Next now is the daily bowel movement. Waist, your body weight has weight too. If you're still losing inches, if you're measuring yourself, then that means you're still losing fat, even if your weight is the same. Bottom line, just because you're not losing body weight doesn't mean that you've hit a plateau. Use the comprehensive body scale that we provide you to confirm your hydration level, your muscle mass, the amount of body fat. After measuring all those biomarkers, you'll find that the fat loss has stopped, if it has stopped, for at least 3 weeks. So if your fat loss has stopped after you've checked those things for 3 weeks, then you've hit a plateau. That's when you first know a plateau is hit. Now remember, hitting a plateau is a great thing, because that means that you're making progress and your body is changing and improving and getting better. All right. So let's go over the things to do. All right. So the first thing you want to do to make sure how you can break this plateau is, are you consuming too many carbohydrates? Now, I didn't say none, I said too many. In the phase 1 protocol, we allow you 20 grams of carbs a day. And that's not 20 calories, that's 20 grams of carbs in phase 1. Okay. So if you're getting more than that, then, well, that's going to increase your insulin. Insulin is a fat promoting hormone, and that could be the first place I would look. The next is not following the protocol. It was as it's outlined. If you don't follow it, then that's just another form of non-compliance. Your body's gonna respond to that. There's a lot of science behind why the program is set up the way it is. It's just not by accident. So follow it. Hydration. Drinking less than half your body weight in ounces a day. Is that what you're doing? You got to drink your water, right? A good measurement is take your body weight, cut it in half. Let's say you weigh 150 pounds. Cut your body weight in half. That's 75. Drink that many ounces in a day. Now, don't drink it all at one time. Drink it throughout your day. You've heard me say, if you take 2 to 3 sips every 20 minutes, or should I say swallows, you take 2 to 3 swallows every 20 minutes, you don't have any worries about hydration. You're getting plenty in your day, right? The next on the list is fasting. Are you fasting? Waiting more than 4 to 5 hours between your meals. Not what I'm talking about is protein, right? Unless you've implemented intermittent fasting. Now, I'm going to go over intermittent fasting in more detail in part 2 of this series, but unless you've implemented a strategic intermittent fasting, then fasting in this case will be counterproductive to you losing fat, because it's once in a while, or it's irregular, and it's not something that your body's going to respond to well. Next one is HIIT. Remember, the H stands for high intensity interval training. Is absolutely the best form of exercise to lose fat, and has several other advantages over other types of exercising like cardiovascular. Just make sure that you're getting sufficient quantity of the omega oil when you're doing your HIIT exercise. And we've gone over details of how to do the HIIT. Next one is confirm that you're getting the required amount of omega oil. And remember, it includes that liver cleanse in it, because most people have a fatty liver. That will help you reduce the fat in your liver. And when you do that, that makes your body more efficient at burning fats. Next, are you metabolizing more protein than your body needs? Now, that's just another way of saying, are you getting too much protein? Too many people that follow a ketogenic diet think that, well, I can just eat all the protein I need. It's true that you've heard me say that as you get older, you need more protein than you did a few years ago, right? Because your body needs that extra protein. However, for your older, you've heard me say that just switch to a protein that's easier to digest, increase it a little bit, and that's why I recommend the peptide proteins. It's a faster, easier, digestible protein, and great for chasing away muscle mass. I'm not elderly, but I take the peptide protein. So if you're getting too much protein in your diet, however, it's going to convert that extra protein your body doesn't need into glucose and then into fat. And in the process of doing all that, you'll be promoting an insulin increase. And you know what insulin does for fat? It doesn't burn fat, it promotes more fat. And then the last one is, are you sleeping at least 7 hours uninterrupted a day? And more studies are coming out talking about the importance of sleep. You got to have that recovery. And we were designed to sleep. So you got to get in at least 7. I lean closer to the 8 hours. I feel better at that mark, but get that in, okay? Now let's see if we have a question. Will we post this list on the website? We won't post the list. This is recorded, this program. We do send this out later today or tomorrow, and then you'll have constantly the list right there. You just go to this section and you'll see the list, and you'll be able to go through these points. Now, in a point, we're going to go back over all these in part 2, because I'm going to increase other things. There are different forms of breaking your plateau. This is just one that I'm showing you. I'm going to introduce more in part 2, but that's how you can get a list of all the things we're talking about. Another question from Robert is, that first one is from Diane. Thanks for the question. That was a great question. Robert asked, will cheese or lunch meat cause your insulin to rise? That's a great question. You've heard me talk about our battle with carbohydrates, our battle with glucose. You've heard me say things like keep our insulin levels down because they're the enemy. Hopefully you've also heard me say that even though I've made those statements, they're also broad strokes, meaning, look, we're always producing some insulin, right? At any given time, if you're in the highest level of fat burning mode, meaning that you're eating 0 carbs, I mean, not any at all. Let's just say you're eating nothing but fat, because fat is a 0 insulin promoting macronutrient, and insulin doesn't respond to fat at all. So you're eating nothing but fat. I'm not advocating that. I'm just giving this as an example. You're eating nothing but fat, zero insulin production because of the food you're eating, your body will still produce insulin. But it's not making insulin because of the food you're eating. It's making insulin because of the glucose your liver is making. So let me repeat that. How in the world is your liver making glucose if you're not eating carbohydrates? Because your brain does need about almost 15% of its energy source has to be glucose. The rest of it can be ketones, but it can't live 100% on ketones. And there are some cells in our bodies, like, for example, our red blood cells, can only live on glucose. And your body knows that. So if you switch to a ketogenic diet, don't worry. Doesn't mean you're doing any damage or danger. Your body just says, I'm adapted. I was made for this type of thing, so I can handle it. What your liver does is your liver actually will make glucose itself, and then so that your cells will receive that glucose, your insulin will be produced by your pancreas just enough to match the amount of glucose that your liver is making. So to be very detailed, we're always making a little bit of insulin, but you can be making insulin and still be in a ketogenic diet. That's why the next series, and you'll hear this coming out more and more as the latest research is coming. I won't go into a great depth now, but that's why I'll say, people, stop looking at glucose levels. It's the wrong measurement to measure to see if you're burning fat, for one, or if you're in ketosis, two. It's a terrible measurement because you can be both in high ketosis, high levels of ketones, high level of fat burning, and have low glucose. But you can also be high fat burning, high ketone production, and be high glucose. So just because you have glucose in your bloodstream and you're checking it on your meter and go, oh, my glucose went up, I must be out of fat burning. That's not true. You just ignore that and go right to checking your ketones. Check your ketones. That will tell you the level of, or the fact, not only the level of fat burning, but whether you're in fat burning or not. And that's why I advocate checking your ketones. I'm putting together a program that you can get a ketone meter from us at a very reduced rate, just so that you can keep yourself aware and not be misguided by measuring the wrong thing like glucose. So enough for that for now. I'll talk about that. But to answer Robert's question, will cheese or lunch meat raise your insulin? It can raise it. Depending on the type of cheese, some cheeses do have naturally occurring sugars in it. So I recommend that you go more towards the white cheeses because they have less glucose, all right? And depending on your meats, remember there's some meats that they manufacture, so it does have, like beef jerky, for example, I'll have some sugars in it, so stay away from that. You'll get a moderate rise, but not enough to kick you out of fat burning mode. But that doesn't mean you can just eat as much cheese and lunch meat as you want. Listen to your body. If you just want to snack on something, then your body can do fine with just a small amount. But if you just want to have a whole separate meal of cheese and meat in between your breakfast and your lunch, in reality, it's just another mini meal, then you're probably getting more. You're listening more to your cravings than you're listening to your body. So you won't get a huge insulin rise with cheese or meat, but just make sure you're not getting more than your body needs. So listen more to your body and less to your cravings. Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, we just went through the list. We talked, we're going right into, we talked about our bowel movements. That's one. So if you're not having a bowel movement every day, then that can be weight that's sitting there, that will fool you, unless of course you have a scale like we provide you, that you then ignore your body weight and you're just looking at your muscle fat and hydration. So if you're having any difficulties with consistent, I, for example, take magnesium because it's not habit forming. I split up in two magnesium payments of I take it at night and I take it in the morning. That way I don't get too much all at one time, which will promote diarrhea. And then I'm too firm later on. I just break it up. I take 2 capsules at night and 3 capsules in the morning because I am more prone to constipation than the average person. And that does me great. And that keeps me so I don't have a plateau because of bowel movements, right? So if you've hit a plateau after trying those things for 3 weeks in a row, then try these changes. You want to confirm this list that you see on the screen, right? The next is just make sure that you're compliant with this sheet. This is phase 1. Or if you're on phase 4 or phase 2, just make sure you're compliant. Reread the sheet. Maybe you've missed something. Maybe you just through time, you've overlooked it. Just watch it, read back on the sheet. The approach here is to just be compliant. So if you you've confirmed that you're not messing up, you're following the program properly, then start what we call a modified phase 1. Take phase 1 here. A modified is also the same one that a diabetic would follow. So, and that is on our website. So you can get the diabetic or modified or the alternative. We call it the alternative program too. Follow that. That will change your program. And all it really is you want to reduce the carbs maximum to as low as possible. Do that for 1 week. Increase your exercise. That will help promote your growth hormone naturally. And just remember that when you're working out, you've heard me talk about push it to failure. Push it till you can't do anymore. That doesn't mean you have to do heavy weights. Just do it. Even if it's 20 reps, just do it till you can't do 21, right? Just increase the amount of weight enough so you can't do that last one. The magic happens when your muscle, it's called going to failure, where you can't do any more. That's where the growth hormone happens. Even for 72-year-old men, even for 89-year-old women, growth hormones will happen, but you got to push it to that failure point. Okay. Now, remember on the HIIT, the high interval training, you don't need to do that 3 times a week to get great results. You don't have to do it every day for a long time. So it happens really, really quick. The next things that you change to break your plateau is change from taking the P22, that's the amount of protein, to P6 or P3. It could be that you're getting more protein than you actually need, especially if you're eating too much cheese or lunch meat, right? So let's lower our protein. Let's see if that'll do it. How do you know how much lower protein you need? Well, just watch your muscle mass on the scale that we provide and see if it's going down. If you have 40 pounds or more to lose, I'm going to tell you, you will lose a little bit of muscle, but that's okay. Okay. Just don't lose more than 3 to 5% of your muscle. So just make a note. Okay, I was here, and I don't want to lose more than 3 to 5% during your fat loss. And then after you've lost the fat, you can work on taking a little more protein and increasing your workout intensity to get that muscle back after the fat's gone. The next one, begin each day with a HIIT workout. Now, if you're not going in for a gym full time, I recommend doing a HIIT workout before you go and do a full workout, and do a HIIT workout if it's your off day. Let's say you're only going to work out really 3 times a week and you haven't been working out. Well, then just start with HIIT. It's only 30-second maximum intensity level 3 times, and then you rest for 60 seconds in between the sets, right? So let's add up the time there. we've got 3 times 30 seconds. That's 90 seconds, right? And then we've got 60 seconds in between each one. Well, you're going to be done with the whole thing in less than 7 minutes. I mean, you've got that much time in your morning or in your day. And so even when you're starting out, just start out with 3 of those a week. You want to increase to doing it 5 times a week. And then once you expand on and go say, oh, well, I want to do a little more than just hit. I want to build my back muscles, or maybe your legs are a little weak. You want to build your hips or your buttocks so that you can climb the stairs a little bit better. Then add that resistance training after your hit exercise, okay? You'll get better results. HIIT is where it's at. Next, when working out, the goal is to increase the metabolic mechanism by working the largest muscle groups first. So at the beginning of the workout, after the HIIT, do your legs, your back, your glutes, your chest, shoulders, okay? Arms, abs, in that descending order. So what you saw me do is I went from legs, back, glutes. Those are your biggest muscles. And then you slowly go down. So when you're working out, you don't want to do all those at the same day, but whatever day you're on, do the biggest muscle of that leg group first. Get that out of your way, and you'll get the greatest results, because that's where you need most of your energy, in those bigger muscles, because generally you're going to lift heavier weights with the bigger the muscle, right? Simple. Next, start taking your CMR 6 times a day instead of 3. It's the same amount of food that's already written in your alternative plan, but if you don't have it, really the only difference between the phase 1 modified or alternative is that you're getting 6 shakes a day instead of 3 shakes a day, but it's exactly the same amount, meaning you're still only consuming 6 total scoops. How many scoops you put in per shake? 2. Times that by 3 meals a day, that's 6. You're doing the same amount, but you're just drinking half of the shake, put it off, and then drink the rest of the second half in 2 to 3 hours. So instead of every 5 hours, you're drinking it every 2 to 3 hours. What you're doing is you're just changing the time that you're eating frequency. You're shortening that time frame. Again, I'm going to hit on again, reduce the carbs even more. In your mind, try to reduce them to 0. Drop them to 0. The chances of you doing that are really hard for a long period of time. But it's not as important to actually achieve the 0. You just want to focus. Just be attentive of not doing this. Now, we're only doing this for 1 week to start with. Right? So you can do it for a week. I just want you to get below 10 grams for that plateau breaking mechanism to kick in. And then another thing, as I tell you to get extra edge, take the Trio Trim or the 3B inhibitor pills 20 to 30 minutes before your meal, and take it before each meal. That will, if you mess up a little bit, or if you're not counting some of the carbs, that'll just give you a little extra edge to save some of those carbs that are sneaking in your food. You want to increase your intake of your omega oil, the 369, by 50%. Okay, because what we're doing is we're dropping your carbs even more, but I need you to have enough energy, so you increase your oil by 50%. And then cut out your smart foods for a little while. Even though our smart foods have very low carbohydrates in it, they still do have some. And maybe you're overindulging in our smart foods. So let's cut that out for a week. That includes the smart flour if you're making your own, your favorite meals. Now, this is the first technique of the plateau breaker. There's others, and I'm going to go into that next week. I'm going to go into the other program. But start this. Go start it out. Do it for 3 weeks, on and off, right? Meaning, so phase 1, the alternative plan that I just went through with the 6 meals a day, super low on carbs. Do that for a week, and then go back to the normal phase 1 for a week, and then go back and do the alternative 6 meals a day for another week, and then that's a total of 3 weeks. Okay, so try that. That'll be a change to your normal metabolic function, and that is very successful at breaking plateaus. And then you're going to hit another one after some time, and that's why I'm going to tell you another plateau breaking technique, but that's for next week. That'll be in part 2. I appreciate your time. Hopefully this has been helpful and useful. If you have any friends or any associates, any people that are struggling with some of the things that we're talking about, then invite them to come by. All of our videos are recorded. They can go back and find the one that's most helpful to them, or you can. But next week we're going to go over part 2. If they missed part 1, it'll still be very informative, very useful, and so invite them. Have them stop by, and would love to add them to our group and help increase their health. I appreciate you, love you, look forward to your success, and I'm ever searching, dedicated to making sure that I get you the latest science, the latest cutting research, and the best products that are on the planet. And well, I do it all for you. So we'll see you next week. Be healthy.